Welcome to my brand new podcast, Mayhem, hosted by myself, Danielle. And joining me along the way on each episode are some amazing guests talking their personal journeys of parenthood, whether it be through younger kids, teenage kids, or adult children, and some professionals along the way as well that can potentially help some of you. I know I've learnt loads already from these people, so hopefully some of you do too. And I really hope you enjoy it, have some laughs along the way. I'm sure there'll be some funny stories in there. So yeah, all I ask is please subscribe to whatever platform it is that you're listening on. It really helps the podcast. And then hopefully I can bring some more amazing guests on there. So yeah, thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy the show. And welcome back to the Mummy Mayhem podcast. This week we have the lovely Lolly, the manifesting mama, joining us. How are you today?
Hiya, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. We've just
Thanks
been
for
having a
having
lovely
me.
chat before. Oh no, you're welcome. Thank you for coming on. We've just been having a lovely chat before, and I'm like, oh, we could put all of this in the podcast, so we
I
might
know,
end
we
up
should
having
just
like
press record.
let's record our conversation. I feel like we could just talk for ages, because we can
We
relate
really
on
could.
quite a few things as well, which is good. But yeah, Lolly is here today to just talk about, again, through parenting experiences, hear her story of parenting, starting up a brand new business, which is mega exciting. Scary but exciting.
Scary but exciting. It's finally happening.
I read somewhere it's like you didn't feel nervous and scared, like you didn't care. So it's like champion them feelings, and it's
Yeah,
good.
no, exactly. And actually, I do a lot of work with emotions and actually where they are in the body. And if you think about it, nerves and excitement, actually the feeling of them are very, very similar. It's
Mm,
just about telling your brain what they're labeled as.
mm.
So I kind of try and go, because where I used to be a drama teacher, we used to get a lot of nervous kids, and I'm like, yeah, but it's just the same sort of feeling, so could you not tell yourself you're maybe excited? And he was like, oh, maybe I am. And it was a brain changer. It was completely
Yeah.
like, ooh.
It's. I think it's good. Like I used to think it as a negative, like when you're feeling scared, like before like a job interview or something like that. But then, like you said, I always put it back to like, but just before you get on a roller coaster, you've got that feeling, haven't you, of like,
Yeah.
oh my god, but it's like excitement. So yeah, just trying to. It's all in your mind, isn't it? Just trying to
Yeah, you just
move.
reframe it a little bit, and I think
Mm,
that's a really powerful tool for life in general. Is
mm,
kind of like, how can you reframe this situation? Because a lot of people, I mean, as humans, we are hardwired to go with the negative because it is that protective nature.
mm.
Um, but then if you reframe it into a positive, and I love the quote, my favorite quote, and it sticks with me always, and I always come out all the time, is, I don't even know who it's by, which is really bad. um but what if I fall? And it's like, oh, but darling, what if you fly? And you're like, oh shit, yeah, oh my god. And it's that realization that there's always a positive out of it.
Mhm.
So yeah, that is definitely something I live by.
Yeah, and I think definitely when you've been faced with a lot of negatives in your life, which we like can touch on in a minute,
Yeah,
I think like for me personally, looking at like the positives of the situation. So I always take it
yeah,
back like with when I had Freya, I was quite like naive, quite sheltered about life, very tunnel vision sort of thing. And
yeah,
then all of a sudden, I'm faced with like a difficulty, and it's how I managed to get myself like through it was thinking about the positives, like forgetting the negative because you literally can't change it. And
no,
like trying to just channel and focus on them positives because there is a positive in like every situation, and I took it like the positive, like the first positive of her being born and things like that was she'd come to me and like sort of chosen me to be her mum to learn these experiences and things like that. So it is really hard in that moment, and I guess for you, you are constantly trying to have to think about the positives, obviously with what you go through like on a daily battle, I guess,
yeah.
with your chronic condition.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, so to be to explain, I have a 11-year-old. He'll be 12 next week. ADHD, and we're sort of still fighting for potentially an autism assessment. I won't even bore you with that story right now, but yeah, he's been in and out, and then so I've always had that kind of challenging caring role with him. And when I became pregnant with my little one, she will be 3 next month as well. So they're both March babies. Um, yeah, get that one. With both of them at the same time. Um, yeah, so trying to you get organised at Christmas, and then it's like, oh bugger, they've got a birthday within a week of each other.
Me and my sister the
um,
same. So you got my sister, a couple of days later my dad, then you a couple of days later you got my nephew, then a couple of days later you've got me. Like there's 4
it's
birthdays.
absolutely, and we've got a week, literally a weekend in between, and it's Mother's Day, and I'm like, flipping out, my
Yeah,
mum's
so
just
is mine.
birthday, she don't need no more presents. And then it's Easter the weekend after. This March has just killed me.
I know. I'm feeling March. It's like mega struggle this this year, isn't it?
Yeah, this
Yeah.
year's like insane. Yeah, so what was I saying? And then yeah, pregnancy. So I had Elsie. She's only 3. But I knew from having Jack, I suffer really badly with sickness. But the sickness was even worse this time. Absolutely, completely, to the point where I couldn't keep water down. And unfortunately, because of my previous pregnancy and the trauma that I suffered in that pregnancy and labour, I was adamant I wasn't going into hospital. So my husband, bless him, he's the first time dad, he's Jack's stepdad. And he was like, I don't know what to do. Like, he was just like, surely you can't be this ill. Like, there's loads of women that are pregnant. They don't find it this hard. And I'm like, yeah, you probably shouldn't have said that out loud, darling. But there's me. I can't even keep water down. And that went on till like the middle of the second trimester. So I was really, really poorly. And then the second trimester hit, and I couldn't walk. I couldn't. Like, I was diagnosed with SPD quite quickly, and I was having to like wear the belts and stuff. And she I will always remember this, at 19 weeks, so, like literally for the rest of the term, she set up shop with her head in the engaged position and was ready. And so I was walking with like a rugby ball between my legs for the entire rest of the pregnancy. So I couldn't walk properly, and by the end of it, I ended up in crutches. So I was just, yeah, it was horrendous. I won't even get on to the labour story, but yeah, after that, 18 months later, I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. And because you have this pregnancy, and my mental health hit rock bottom, and I'd always had really bad mental health. And prior to Elsie, I'd been diagnosed with chronic depression and anxiety, which burnt me out, and which is why I ended up coming out teaching, because it just wasn't conducive. And then obviously the pregnancy killed me off completely, to the point that when I thought I would start getting better, it was like a year later, and I was like, I've given up smoking. I've everything, and I just feel like I'm getting worse. And the doctor was like, I think you could have fibromyalgia. I was then, and the thing is, you with fibro, you just are so exhausted, so tired. And when I kept thinking it will get better soon, it will get better soon, and then you're hit with this diagnosis of it's a constant. And actually they don't. I probably had the worst diagnosis, official diagnosis, because he went, yeah, your textbook's fibromyalgia, go away and Google it. I was like, what? Yeah, there's nothing that we can do for it, go away and Google it. So I went away and Googled it.
That's
Worst advice, because all I then had was the negatives, and you join the Facebook support groups and they're not supportive. They are just all of the horror stories. All of the horror stories of, I'm 20 something and I'm in a wheelchair. What? I've just had a baby. I can't do this. And at the same time, Jack was actually going through that very, very long process of getting a diagnosis. I think I was diagnosed in like the late April, and in the January he was diagnosed with ADHD officially. And in the March, like early April, started his medication. So I'd been going through all of this process, and he had had an horrendous time at school with a supply teacher who just thought he was naughty. And obviously, if you know anything about ADHD, you do, a lot of it does kind of come down to their behaviour is how they're spoken to.
Yeah.
So he was going into meltdowns after meltdowns after meltdowns. I had to like do my whole I used to be a teacher thing, and put my claim to, like, I know what I'm talking about, to the new head teacher of the school, and getting moved classes and be the problem parent, which I always hated. Do you know what I mean? As a teacher, I was like,
I hate that term, problem parent, because we are literally like, because I've had the same battle with my daughter, my youngest. I'm really lucky, like, we got granted like one-to-one care straight away, because obviously being a double amputee, she's not steady on her legs as much as like the other kids.
Yeah.
She does need, and like she needs help going to the toilet and things like that. So she is constant. There is like a constant like one-to-one care, like care needed. But finding the right one-to-one carer like in the school is really tricky. And I've had the same battles, like me and my husband. And sometimes I do come away from like meetings and thinking, God, they must think I'm a right fucking bitch, like, and just going on. But then I'm thinking, well, no, I'm literally just trying to get the right care that my daughter needs. And I would do it for any kid. Like, as a parent, as an adult, you have to be the voice for the kids, don't you? Because they're children. They don't have their own. They do have their own voice, but they're not listened to, are they? And it's up to adults to champion that for them and get them what they need. And why shouldn't everyone have the same experience in education? Like, everyone is entitled to the right of education, and just because you have like an adaptation that's needed, or you've got a neurodiverse child, whatever, everyone should experience the same. And it's we're just championing it, like trying to get what we need for our kids. We're not
I'm going through this battle again now with Jack at because he started secondary school now. And I think the difference between us is where your little one, it's very obvious. Whereas Jack has learned the art of masking like no one. And he has gone into secondary, gone, I don't want to be special. No one needs to know that I'm special. He refuses to use any kind of like fidget toy or tools or anything like that, to the point where the school didn't even know because the files hadn't gone over properly. And January just gone, we had self-harming incidents where he's like, because he, in his moments of where he needs to fidget or his body's full of anxiety because he's still trying to understand and deal with the changes and stuff, which really confuse an ADHD, ASD person. But because he's hiding that, the anxiety builds up in him, and then the fidgeting is going even more. So he's then he breaks his equipment. Rather than fidget with a toy or a doodle pad or whatever, he breaks his equipment. And what he did start doing was like using his arm as a doodle pad. So he literally would be coming home every single day with like a full, what looked like a full tattooed sleeve. Like literally all different colours. I was like, and then I'm thinking to myself, but hang on a minute, as a teacher, I would have flipping noticed a child in my class doing that, because that would have been like every single lesson for the whole day.
Yeah.
What's going on here? And then it escalated to doing it with a broken pencil, which then literally broke the skin, and he has now like a massive star, what looks like a star tattoo on his hand, because the scar's so big. And then the next day it escalated again to the blades out of a pencil sharpener. And that was January. Only this week have I actually had a conversation with his consultant about changing his meds, because they're clearly not working. And yeah, and it's such a long process. And even on Monday she said, yeah, well, I'll give you a prescription. Yesterday I'm chasing for it because they haven't done the prescription, and I'm like, it is a constant, and there is this kind of element, and you go, oh, well, you're a carer, yeah, great, okay, but then in school hours you've got nothing else to do. And I'm like, I literally on my Facebook yesterday put, I spend half my life on phones, being on hold to agencies to be battered around. And I think that's one of the biggest drains as a parent carer. It's not just the actual caring of the child, it's the chasing of agencies that people don't get. And I'm like, you're chasing the medication, you're chasing mental health, because he's all under mental health team, he was under the school team. I'm trying to chase them, trying to get hold of them, trying to do you know what I mean? I'm like,
no, I so get it. Like with Freya, because she's got epilepsy as well as being
oh bless her,
she's a double amputation. So the actual being an amputee, that's actually a walk in the park. Like we've got that nailed now. Like,
yeah, that makes, like I said, sometimes it's easier when it's an obvious thing. It's like, people can see it, they're like, oh, okay then. But when it's something that they can't see, they just don't get it.
No, and like going on the medication, obviously she doesn't need any medication. Like it's a pain in, like we get a broken leg or something, and obviously when her leg breaks, she can't then wear them, so then she has to go in a wheelchair and things like that, because she is double amputee. Like she would have to go into her wheelchair then, and she's sort of getting to that age now where she's like, yeah, I don't need my wheelchair. Like she's very like headstrong, and she's gonna walk
and independent. Yeah,
which is great. So we've sort of got that nailed now with a physio, and like I've got a great relationship. She's got the most amazing team in her ALAC centre. Like they are just the best. So that side of her disability is really easy, because her team make it easy for us, because there's that constant communication. I'm never having to chase them. More like they're chasing me, like, oh, have you decided on a date and things like that, physio, and like it's great. But the epilepsy side, it took 18 months for us to actually get a designated epileptic nurse. So she was diagnosed, and it was a bit like your diagnosis with fibro. So she got diagnosed, she had to go into hospital, and then because she had, and it's quite common apparently now, like researching it, that when a child develops epilepsy, it all just comes on like all of a sudden, and they'll just have like multiple seizures throughout the day, and they don't stop. So she had to be like medicated to get them stopped and things like that. And we had all the scans and things like that, and they were like, yeah, she's got epilepsy, here's some medication, bye. We were like, what the fuck?
And you know what I think, because then coming out of, and the other thing with epilepsy that I found, because I used to work on a special needs summer camp in America, and we had a lot of children with this, and it was learning the difference, because when you say epilepsy, people think the full-on like mouth frothing and the really like thing, and I'm like, no, you can just have where they just zone out, and it looks like they just zone out. And they're even to the point where they just look, I can't remember if is it petit mal? I can't remember, grand mal, petit mal, or they could be American.
Grand mal
is the
really know it.
full on body flopping and then the smaller ones is where they just, it's literally their brain zones out and is doing the whole skits mode, but the body isn't following the same, and actually they look like they're just not engaging with you, or they could be just being rude.
Yeah.
and for a little while, and then they just kind of go, oh, what's happened, like,
Yeah.
and they don't even notice. And I think when it's that kind of epilepsy, people are like, no, they're just rude. Like, no, their brain has gone full on skits mode and disappeared somewhere. And that's,
brain.
yeah, they don't really get that part, do they?
Yeah, because Freya, she doesn't convulse. She's had one convulsion, but that was due to high temperature and things like that. But yeah, she doesn't convulse in her when she has a seizure. She'll do like if she normally it's in the night that she has seizures, and like she does like weird stuff with her mouth. Sometimes like she'll hold her breath, her like eyes roll back. But during the day, she does have these like spacing out moments. But obviously, that is quite common with ADHD as well,
Yeah.
that you go into like zone out and space out. So, and her medication then has like contrast effects. So it's whilst it's controlling her seizures to a point, it does bring like other side effects like behavioural
Yeah.
and things like that. And you're then trying to work out like, right, is this epilepsy? Is this her medication? Could she potentially have something else? And you're just like, oh my Jesus, like, God.
Yeah, and actually this is the problem that we have now with Jack, because his ADHD. So just before COVID, they did what they call a BOSA. So it's a distance autism assessment, and in that they went, his ADHD is so hyper and too prevalent that we can't tell. So that's when they went, you need to be assessed for ADHD. Okay, so we went through all of that process, did the whole assessment, got him on meds and settled and controlled and everything else, and that was fine. Then I was still noticing sort of almost, it was like the ADHD traits of like obsessive compulsive type behaviors, and that kind of stuff was very almost more prevalent now that he'd on meds. And I was like, okay. And knowing that with ADHD, sort of 80% of people diagnosed with ADHD have a different kind of condition that goes with it. And 60% of those 80% are normally autistic as well.
Is it that high percent? Is it?
Yeah, it's that. It's something like that. It's either, I think it's those two numbers, but it could be the other way around. It could be 60% of
I know that they
ADHD.
mirror up quite a lot because my nephew is
Yeah,
autistic, and he's got ADHD as well. So
yeah.
I
And
know
then
quite
this
often
week,
it does like they both
yeah,
they have it both.
yeah. And so he had his ADOS, which is the proper autism assessment, in November. Which then, when everything kicked off in January, that's what I was expecting this phone call to be about this week. And she was like, no, it's about the autism appointment. I was like, oh, okay. Because what we've done is with the ADHD medication, and people are like, oh, you give him the medication, it sorts. No, actually, what it's done is he's on the verge of being underweight. He's lost so much weight. He doesn't eat on the medication, and the medication also makes him very angry. So in the evening, it's great because he's concentrating at school, but we get that very aggressive behaviour on top of the fact that it's actually coming out of his system. So the mood and stuff, and then so school holidays and weekends, we were told that we could actually take him off the medication. So he's happier and he's amazing, but he just eats and eats and eats. So that's how we've managed to sort of balance his weight a little bit to keep him in the healthy realm. But what then this appointment was, so he wasn't on his medication when she spoke to him, and he was just like, oh yeah, I'm fine. And it was like, we're back to 2 years ago because I can't tell. And I was like, great. So we're still being told he could be autistic. It's highly likely because the ADOS said he's got, all of the traits of it, but it could just be the ADHD as well. And I'm like, great. So we're literally going around in circles, and it's a 2-year circle. And I'm like, he's going to be an adult before we get the support, and it's that constant struggle. And it's not a case of I want him labelled. It's a case of, well, and I know, and unfortunately I hate to say this, but as a teacher, I know that if I've got kids in the classroom, okay, you pick out the most prevalent ones. If you're told that kid's ADHD, you think, right, active, he's gonna like be interruptive, it's impulsive, great. You label that child with autism, you think, you know, sensory issues, you think, do you know what I mean? It's the most prevalent little, it could be, you know, conversation, social skills. So, and in that classroom setting, you can't go, right, okay, so ADHD, it has this, because you've got a split second to think about it. So you think of the most prevalent issues. So if he is autistic, that side and those needs are not being met in a classroom. They're not being planned for. And as a teacher, I can understand that because I've been there. Do you know what I mean? And this is where, like you were saying, it's, and this is what a lot of my work and what my business is now. It's about conscious living, conscious parenting, being aware of what belief systems we have as adults that came from childhood, and actually where are we what belief systems we're instilling in our children. And I would love to bring that into the teaching arena as well, because I do think there is an element of, and this is why I got out of teaching, because I don't feel like our education system serves the mental health of our children. They don't see them as children, they see them, it's that very old patriarchal society of children are seen, not heard. We demand too much of them. They are not seen as human beings. They're not seen as having their own thoughts, opinions. They are seen to be something to be I don't know, not a possession, although some parents do see them as possessions. It's a whole different arena. We could be here for another week. But do you know what I mean? They just sort of see, it's that old, that, like I said, that old seen and not heard kind of thing. And it is being conscious that actually our children have thoughts, opinions, feelings. And it's taken my own diagnosis to realise just how fucked up I was and where my conditions have then come from. Because on top of my fibro, once I'd realised I had fibro, I went 3 weeks into the depths of absolute despair. Absolute. I was ready to just go, fuck it, end it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I knew my mental health has always been up and down. At 33 weeks, sorry, I was sat in the bathroom with scissors ready to slit my wrist when I was 33 weeks pregnant. My mental health, I've been there with all that kind of really depths of despair kind of thing. So at 3 weeks, I'd put everything I'd learned into, I need to take control of this. I can reframe this because I'm not that freaking bad. I'm not. I can get around. Like, I'm hearing all of these people tell me all these horror stories, and I'm like, but I'm not that bad. And by changing that narrative of in your mental health, and reframing it and living it in a more positive life, actually the pain got better. And I think that is a big thing. Like I mean, this morning I got up, I could barely walk because I know the last few days I've had a lot of emotional strain. And I think what people don't realise is that actually there is so much more that needs discovering within the link between the emotional side, the mental drain, the emotional drain, and then the impact that then has on the body.
Yeah, I guess because I don't know, and like correct me if I am wrong, because I don't know like too much about it. I've got friends with fibro and things like that, but it's an inflammation condition, isn't it? It's like inflammation of your body, is it? The pain.
So from my research, I could be completely wrong because when they go away and you go Google it, you go, okay, well, this is what I believe it is, because I then got a book the fibro manual, and it really broke it down and made it quite clear. And it's essentially, from my understanding, fibromyalgia is sort of like your nervous system's broken, because we have two nervous systems. So we have the parasympathetic, which is the relax nervous system, which is where your body knows it's safe, it's relaxed, and then it can let your body go in to do its digestive stuff, like the sleep patterns and stuff like that. Whereas then it has the other one, which is the flight, fight, freeze nervous system. And essentially what has happened is your body has then become stuck predominantly in flight or freeze. So it's constantly pumping adrenaline, it's constantly pumping cortisol, and it's, you get digestive issues and toileting issues because they're systems that work when you're in the relaxed nervous system and your muscles relax. And this is where the pain, from my understanding, this is where the pain comes from, because when you're always in that constant flight fight response, when you're in that mode and your muscles are getting adrenaline punched to them, like ready to tense and work all the time, they're not getting a chance to relax. So that's where the inflammation starts building in certain joints, and over time it can progress if you don't actively force your body into the relax mode. And like with sleep, it becomes a major issue, because you're in pain all the time. Like, I didn't sleep very well last night because my back was killing me. But actually, when your body naturally, so there's 3 types of sleep. So you have your light sleep, your deep sleep, and your REM. REM is where your brain does all the dreaming and your eye flickering and that kind of thing. Deep sleep is actually a really small portion, but you need about an hour and a half of pure deep sleep every single night. When I used to wear my watch, when I looked, I'd get about half an hour, maybe 45 minutes if I'm lucky. So even though I felt like I've had 8 hours sleep, it's only light sleep. And the deep sleep is actually where your body completely shuts down and it resets, and it goes into that. So your digestive system goes sort of flushes and works itself out. The liver sort of flushes itself out. Your brain goes down to its really lowest point. Whereas the best way it's described, like sleeping with fibro, is like sleeping with one eye open. So like your brain is always on alert. You're not completely switched off. And it really, even to the point where I don't sleep with my eyes closed. This really freaks. Yeah, I can't close my eyes fully. Yeah. And I go to have my lashes done, and my lady freaks out because she's like, "Close your eyes." I went, I am. And she's like, "You bloody haven't." And I'm like, my eyes are closed, but they're not, and I can't. Yeah, and it's like I sleep with my eyes just ever so slightly open, and that's natural. I can't do that, and I've noticed my kids are doing it as well. And actually, this is another thing that I like. This sort of second part of my story is, no, thank you.
That's
Do I want a coffee? Yeah, I know, he's lovely like that. Yeah. So what was it? It's only phoned me now.
The second part of your story about your...
Yeah. So when I got fibromyalgia and I'm really, really tired, I'm having to sleep all the time, and I'm trying all these different techniques and stuff like that. So I could tell you so much about what's actually helped my own treatment. Part of my treatment is having a nap every day, which was fine because I had a baby. So she napped, I napped. Having a bath. At some point when I was first diagnosed, I was having baths twice a day, some days, and I'd found these bath salts, and I swear by them now. So if you've got fibromyalgia and you haven't tried West Lab mindfulness bath salts, you get them in Savers or BMs. Oh my God, They are life-changing. Get them from Savers or BMs because they're like $3.50. Whereas you go Superdrug, they're like £8. Bugger that.
I don't
Yeah,
have fibro, but I'm going to get some because I
they
struggle
are.
to switch off, so I'm going to
Yeah,
get
they're
some.
amazing. They are, they got some like CBD in them as well, but they're not
Oh,
active
okay.
CBD. But the muscles, like I sat in the bath this morning for an hour just so I could move, and that really helped. So I know when I haven't been maintaining my own treatment. So essentially, after that, even when I was getting on top of things, and I was really, really getting on top of my fibro, I was like, I'm still really exhausted. Like, I'm so tired. So I was then seen by the chronic fatigue service because chronic fatigue is slightly different. It has very, very similar symptoms to fibro, but whereas fibro can be sort of caused by what they say caused is more like brought on by a trauma where your body's sort of been in shock mode or there's a reason for that nervous system to be broken down. Chronic fatigue normally comes from is seen as an autoimmune system problem. So it could be that, and they turned around and said to me, you have chronic fatigue but not chronic fatigue syndrome. We think you actually have ADHD yourself.
Which would probably make sense if your son has ADHD.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, my ex had ADHD,
Oh,
prevalent.
okay.
He's don't even get me started. That's a whole different
That's
mummy
another
mayhem.
episode.
That history was, but and then actually that realization of he's got ADHD and I'm seeing similarities, but actually then that realization that it comes across very differently in girls. Girls don't have that hyperactivity. It's in their brain. Their hyperactivity is in their brain. So when you could probably tell I talk at the speed of light and I'm very energetic, but like it's what I call like I can people for a little bit, but it takes so much energy to be that people person that I then get very, very drained really, really quickly.
The come down from that.
Yeah, it is. And it's just like that. It is like a come down. And I'm like, oh my God. And then the realization that actually what I have now is all my life, I'm nearly 40. And I still haven't been officially diagnosed with ADHD. And I don't know if I ever will. But I just know in myself that growing up with what is really common as RSD, so rejection sensitivity. So it almost hurts someone with ADHD or autism. It's really common. They feel like if someone says no to them, it's them personally as a person, and it's like an insult. So it comes back to this belief system from when you're a child of I need to people please. I need to be perfectionist. Those kind of syndromes, those kind of traits that you're coming up with, that yes sir, I need to do everything, and if I'm not doing it, I'm no good. It's me that's the problem. And actually that's why I'm really, really proud of myself at the end of my teaching career, because teaching again isn't conducive to this. It's you toe the line and you are the problem if the kids aren't doing well.
Yeah.
And that is the whole education system for the teachers. So it's not just the kids' mental health that it's not working for, it's actually the teachers.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I was so proud because I got to that point where I'm like, just because I was complaining about having almost 2 full-time roles in the school. And I was like, I can't do it. It's ridiculous. And they were like, but that's teaching. That's the way it's always been.
That
And
phrase
just
pisses me off. That's the way it's always been. Just
my
because
God.
it's always been like that, it doesn't have to be like it now.
Yes, yes. And this is
Oh.
where this is my life-changing moment, because I turned around and randomly just went, just because that's the way it's always been, it doesn't mean it's right.
Exactly.
And then I had this moment of, okay, so what am I going to do about it? And I think we get to that point in life of, what am I going to do about it? Am I that person that says, fuck it, I'm leaving, I'm done, I am going to find my life and live life by my design, which is my whole thing, and find my design? Or am I going to toe the line and just suck it up? And for me, and it was sort of coincided with a year later, I left and went into a little bit of supply work because that fear still had me. Do you know what I mean? And I was going into supply every morning, and I was on the phone to my agency going, I'm having a panic attack, calm me down. I'm literally in the car going, I'm sat outside the school, I can't actually, the thought of going into a classroom right now is filling me with absolute fear and panic. And talk me out of it. Come on. And actually, I had a conversation with my agency a couple of weeks ago, no, about a month ago, 2 months ago maybe, and she went, Lolly, you've just come so far. And it is that realisation of, yes, we hit COVID and they closed all the schools, and then I fell pregnant, so it kind of took that option away from me. I had no option. I was coming out of teaching because I couldn't, and there is part of me that thinks I fell pregnant because I came out of teaching, because I'd had a miscarriage in the February, and March, towards the end of March, was when COVID went and we all went lockdown and all the schools closed.
Yeah.
So I had no work, and that stress, the weight just lifted off me, and it was then I was able to fall pregnant with our rainbow baby, which is Elsie, in the July. So it all kind of like, and it just kind of was like, when I'm living in alignment and stress-free and by my design and what lights me up, that is when things start going right. And that is why I'm coined as the manifesting mama, because last year we moved into this house, which is our dream house. And it's, although we were talking about it, we part rent. So it's part bought, part rent. So, like, it may not be the ultimate dream of we own our own house completely. We still have to deal with landlords and rent and stuff like that. But because we part own it, I can decorate it how I want. I can make it my home. I can have a pet or a dog, which has always been a dream. Do you know what I mean? And like, if you ever watch my lives on a Monday morning, I'm normally walking around the country park, which is my front garden, essentially. And I'm like, look at all the doggies. I get so excited. I'm a dog mum without a dog. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. Like, my husband's a cat person. I'm a dog person. My goal this year is to prep a space under the stairs for a dog nook and decorate this, what I'm calling the spine of the house, and like the landing, because it's a 3-story house. So it takes a bit of work and a bit of money. But then next year is going to be the dog. Do you know what I mean? And this is my office, my dream office that I created. And, last year, as well as moving house, I took my husband to Vegas for his 40th birthday. And it's, since living life by my design, and I'm realising the conscious beliefs that I had as a child, and they weren't necessarily ones that put on me. It was part of my condition of ADHD. And actually, it's living in that conscious awareness of, where our children are thinking and feeling, which is why I've recently created Gracious Gremlins.
Oh, I like that.
So Gracious, because I've always called my kids my gremlins. They are my womb gremlins.
I love gremlins.
They are gremlins. So Jack's always been a gremlin, and then gremlin number 2 came along. And it just works. And so it's a free email subscription, and you get a daily sort of really short activity to help. So the tools that I've learned in my personal development and in my training and in my what I now teach women to do to sort of live life by their design, my whole ethos is, if you as a woman are being a little bit more conscious about your life and then conscious about your parenting and how that impacts on your child, we will then have children with all of these tools already built into them. So when they hit adulthood and teenagehood and the shit hits the fan, they've got a natural embedded toolkit, so we don't have children in the mental health crisis. Because when I was teaching, I was a head of year, and we just had year 11 girls, so 15, 16, and the self-harming that comes with that is ridiculous, but also them being on medication. And actually like antidepressants are not, or they weren't licensed for under 16s, because they were kind of like, it's not the done thing. It can be used on under 16s, but it wasn't the done thing. Because it was just so. But the more and more, what have I done with my hair here? Look, sorry. Can you see my ADHD brain? Like, woo, 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 woo. It just made me go, shit. We have got a crisis on our hands, and when I think about what my son goes through, like one day, like he's 11, so we have to take his phone off him at night, otherwise he'd never sleep. And one morning, luckily I've got a neighbour down the road, and the little boy texts, and we take this, some days he goes with us, sometimes he goes with them, so he texts us every night. So I check that text in the morning. I went onto his WhatsApp, 711 messages from one group, from just not having that overnight.
Jesus Christ.
And I'm thinking,
I'm going to meltdown.
I'm a parent. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm a parent who is conscious most of the time. I'm not perfect. Let's not get it right. I'm not trying to feed that into it. There are days when I turn around and I've had enough of my kid, and I think to myself, I could just punch her in the face right now. Do you know what I mean?
You're aware. I think
I'm totally aware.
Yeah.
And actually, I'm thinking, if he'd kept that phone, how many of our kids have got that phone overnight? How many parents check that? Those messages? And a couple of years ago, we've had to ban him from, or take him off the PlayStation network, because he was like 9 and he was getting random boobies sent to him.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I was like,
Christ.
They were just spamming him. Like, you know, you get those emails of like the Russian wives and whatever. They do it through PlayStation as well.
Fucking hell.
I had to.
That does terrify me. Like, I've had a chat with a couple of mums, and like social media and phones and that have been brought into the conversation, because it is terrifying. Like,
yeah.
And there's been reports, like, I know in England now, there's something, I don't live in England now, but so correct me, but there's something that they're trying to ban phones or something in schools because of like this concentration.
Yeah, a lot of schools now. Luckily, my son's school, it's a really, really strict school, which is why I think he's having a little bit of trouble with it. But they give the phone in to their form tutor at the beginning of the day. It gets like in an envelope, in a box, and gets locked into the school office, and then at the end of the day they go back to form time, and they are given that phone back. So they're not allowed it for the whole day. The only way there are, you know, and often I've had the school call me and gone, Jack's come down, he's forgot his planner. And this is the other thing that I said to parents. They're like, oh, my kid needs a phone because of if there's an emergency and I need to get hold of him, ring the school.
Yeah, you're not going to be ringing them in class.
What's the problem with trying to get hold of the school? Or your child can go to reception. If there's an emergency, the school will ring you.
Yeah.
We're not... and this is the other thing, is being a teacher, I know that kind of that remit of the school. We're not that much much of an arsehole. Do you know what I mean? We're human beings. We get it. If there's an emergency and you want to call your mum, you can do that.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, a lot of parents feel that they need to have that when they're going home, if there is that little bit of thing, and that's why he has his phone and stuff like that. But when, and there are other schools that I know of, they're actually got those mechanized pockets, like, so the kids are allowed to keep the phones on them, but they're in a lockable pocket that they scan in. You know, like when you go to like big events and you have to like get them magnetized or demagnetized.
Yeah, if you're not allowed to take photos and videos and things like that.
Yeah. So a lot of schools have, if they're in an academy chain and they've got the budget, they will then do that, and some schools are doing that just to prevent them from having that. And actually, as a head of year, when I was a head of year, so much trouble that came from the phones. The in-between lessons, a lot of the problem was never in lessons, it was always the in-between parts.
Yeah. I don't see a problem with schools taking phones. Like, we take, with our 13-year-old, like, we go through it now with the phone. The phone pisses me off. Like, I know it's a necessity to a degree, because, like, she gets the bus to and from school. Like, I don't take her to school anymore. So, for, like, my own self, like, assurance, I can track her. Right, she's got to school, or she's on the bus, she's on her way home, sort of thing. Like, that's for me. But like, I always say to her, don't use it. But like, sometimes she'll text me in break or whatever like that, and I'm like, no, you shouldn't be texting. Like, don't be using your phone. Like, use that time to actually socialise properly with your friends rather than socialise with your phone.
It is that, isn't it? Yeah, because the other thing is, what we had then is, there is this kind of, like, if there's an incident at school, how many of them have got their phones out filming that and videoing it? And I'm like, when did that become a thing?
You see that,
like, it's not out on the street, and you see these videos on YouTube and stuff now of, you know, how a lot of the footage of a terrorist activity back in the day when they used to come out, and I'm like, you're in the middle of a terrorist activity, who gets their phone out and films that?
I know, me and my husband was having this chat the other day, and like, when something's now happening, like someone is getting stabbed or something like that, or there's a fight going on, all of a sudden people are there with their phones and like videoing it. I'm like, why is that like instilled in like humans now to do?
And the thing is, it's almost become a thing, because unfortunately I live in an area that does have gangs, and obviously the school that I used to teach in, we'd had kids in the gangs and stuff, so we were dealing with that. And you know, you see it in movies where they'd get like the odd one, the lower one in the ranks would be the getaway driver.
Yeah.
Now you got a low one in the ranks, you're the videoer.
Yeah, you're a video man. Yeah.
What?
It's
And I'm like, could you ever imagine getting yourself arrested or in prison out of a crime because you filmed something? But do you know what I mean? It's just ridiculous.
And I think like going back to like kids having ADHD and like autism, like my daughter's not diagnosed with anything, so I think she's potentially a bit ADD. I think I'm a little bit on the spectrum. Her dad 100% is. Like, we've obviously, my nephew is autistic and ADHD. It's all in the family. My sister's got ADHD.
Yeah.
Like, I do see like little traits, a bit like you. Like, it's not so bad that I think like she needs intervention and support, but so I don't know if I'd ever like go down the route of diagnosis, but like a bit like you, just being aware of them traits and trying to manage them.
Yeah, because I think particularly, like I said, with girls, it's not as visible, so it's all going on in here. And that's what worries me, why we have so many girls with that mental health issue. Like with me, I was like constantly feeling that I was the one that wasn't good enough. And, you know, I'd come off sick for a couple of weeks with stress, and I was like, I can't handle it. And then I'd go back. And it took nearly 10 years for me to actually go, there is something wrong with my mental health. And then to be diagnosed with chronic fatigue and anxiety. And actually, it was none of that.
Yeah.
It was spending too long not accepting who I am, not knowing who I was, knowing that actually my need to people please and be a perfectionist and whatever was actually related to a condition, what my brain doesn't work that way, or feeling lazy, or feeling, you know, that I don't want to eat that day, or getting like bouts of I can do it and I can just go. And if I just do this, I can go. And my value and my self-worth became about being productive. And that is impossible to hold up. And actually, if we get them early enough, even though they might not seem to need that, with girls I think it's particularly prevalent that they need to know is that emotional support.
Yeah, that's the only reason that I would. Is I guess you're in a rock and a hard place because of the diagnosis taking like so long.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get like educated on it myself to help her, like, because it might be that she hasn't got it at all. Like, it might just be that she's got traits but she hasn't got it. I just want to be like more conscious. But like, what I was going to ask, obviously being someone that you're a parent and you've got ADHD yourself, do you think that like the phones are having a negative, because obviously with ADHD it's the concentration, isn't it? You're very easily distracted. Do you think like the constant like being on phones and that it keeps your mind busy, do you think that's having an impact on the kids like in schools? And
Yeah, definitely. Because actually, even before I knew this as a head of year, I had to inform parents that phones, essentially that blue light, has the same stimulation effect as cocaine.
Bloody hell, does it actually? Oh my
Yeah.
God.
The same addictive. Yeah, the same stimulation, the same addictiveness as cocaine. And which is why they say no screens or blue light activity, and a lot of phones now have anti-blue light.
Yeah.
Like they're using, because they're fully aware of that, and there's that that anti-blue light technology. But the other thing that you will find with ADHD is their ability to hyperfocus. And even as an adult, this has actually become quite a big thing in my business and has me often in bouts of overwhelm and tears. Like last week I was in tears talking to my social media mentor because I really struggle with social media because I can get distracted so easily, and I lose an hour of my time a day without a blink of an eye because of that doom scroll. And I do not know where I go. It is just, and it's almost, and sometimes there is almost like a battle in my head where there is a little bit of an element going, Lolly, you're just scrolling. Like, what are you doing? You need to come off. You need to go to bed. You went to bed about an hour ago, love. Come on. And then my head, and then my hand is still going.
Yeah.
And it just.
I'm like down the rabbit hole in someone's life, like listening to their life story, and it's like midnight, and I'm like, shit, I've got to get up in like 6 hours, and I just carry on.
Yeah, completely. And I'm finding it so overwhelming, especially obviously like with us where we start businesses and we're working from home. A lot of our business is based on social media, and a lot of our marketing is based on social media. Like we all have a Facebook group. We've got to think about what we put on the group, what we got to put on our stories, what we got to put on our profiles, what we then. Is it of value? Are we getting enough likes? Are we getting this, that, and the other? are we getting, are we beating the algorithm? Is it the right time of day? Is it, do you know what I mean? I'm like,
All that.
yeah, straight away my body's gone, I can feel it here, that anxiety has already hit in here. And I'm like, this is one part of my design that is not working. I know that much. Do you know what I mean? So, but there is help out there. There is help out there. And that is a whole nother conversation. We could be here forever. But being conscious of that with our children, and actually being aware of, particularly with ADHD or autism, they have very addictive personalities and it becomes a hyper focus anyway. That thinking about getting them off a game or a screen and their attitude towards you, and actually not taking it personally, because a lot of these games are designed to be want, got to keep going, because they want you to play them. So they're designed like that. Then there is that with the ADHD or autistic, or even if they just have that kind of prevalence to or deep disposition to be quite addictive personalities, that hyper focus. And when you think about it, if you're in the middle of a hyper focus, or you're in the middle of doing something and someone goes, right, you need to come off that right now, what? Huh? Your brain is still here. I'm ready to, that rage comes up in you. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, what? Huh? Leave me alone. Do you know what I mean? I don't care if you're a child or whoever it is. You do have that natural reaction. But why is it I'm allowed to have that natural reaction as an adult, but my child isn't? When my child, that part that controls the brain, doesn't develop until they're 25.
Okay.
And this is a massive thing, that there's that front part of the brain. So the way that the brain develops is in the womb, you get that tiny little, the brain stem at the back, and that's your, what we all class as the ego. It's the primitive brain, it's the survival mode. It is that kind of where our where we breathe, eat, sleep. It's the flight or fight response. It's that kind of thing. Then you've got the next section of the brain, which is what the emotions come from and that kind of thing. Then the front part of the brain is the last thing to develop, and that carries on developing until they're 25, what they have recently discovered. And that part of the brain is the bit where you are how to handle, it's the rational part of the brain. So it's how you handle emotions, how you deal with those emotions. So essentially with a teenager, that's why we find teenage years very, very difficult, because they look like an adult, they look like they should be able to respond, and actually they've got the adult sized emotions. That part of the brain is there, that's an adult size. They're feeling the big emotions like an adult, but they haven't got the part of the brain to handle them.
And to rationalise how they're feeling.
And to rationalise. And that is what basically ADHD is. There's two parts of ADHD. So the first part is actually, it comes up a lot in childhood, is that part of the brain, the front part, even though it doesn't develop fully till it's 25, it develops at a 30% slower rate than a neurotypical child. So when a neurotypical child is developing those executive functioning, like working memory, emotional handling emotions, and that kind of stuff, they are 30% less than their peers, which is why at primary school they tend to work. It could be developmental, it could just be a little bit, it could be, but if you think about 30%, the older they get, the bigger that gap becomes. So actually you've got an 18-year-old with that part of the brain is actually the same as a 13-year-old.
That's mad.
It's a big gap.
Yeah.
But for some reason they can't prove it, and they don't understand why, but by the time they're 25 it catches up.
That's mad.
It's weird. Yeah, it is mad, but it catches up.
I guess that's why it's just really important, like with any child, but typically if your child is like neurodiverse, is to talk about feelings, and because when you're talking about the feelings, it's
Yeah.
helping rationalize, and it's giving that tool then to that
Yeah.
child. This is how you would rationalize
Yeah,
your
and it
feelings
isn't
and
education based, because I don't know about you, but I've met plenty of adults who are not emotionally intelligent. They
oh
have
yeah,
no
I
ability to emotionally regulate, and a lot of that emotional regulation comes from education, through the
yeah.
education that you're getting as a child. And this is exactly what I was talking about, where they've got those tools embedded rather than trying to firefight when they're an adult.
Yeah, like I got to
Yeah,
28 and I'd had like 10 years of parenting already, 28, and I was just like, fuck, I can't do it anymore. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, had this mind block, and I went on like this massive self sabotage where I just wanted to destroy my life. I nearly ended my marriage. I wanted to run away. I couldn't handle, and I guess all the trauma that I'd had, like obviously having Freya, and I'd had an ectopic pregnancy before, and I'd had like loads of other stuff go on, and I just hadn't dealt with emotions, and because I didn't know how to, and I just hit this like brick wall at 28, and it was like, what am I doing? I don't know what to do. I just wanted to use this opportunity quickly to tell you about one of our amazing sponsors that we have on the podcast. They are a business called Mummy and Me Baby and Children's Wear. They are a gorgeous brand that sell the most beautiful products that you can have personalised for your children, and they are stunning. So for any occasion, birthdays, Christmas, Easter, Valentine's, everything, they do it. So check them out on their socials, on Facebook, on Instagram, and also their website www.mummyandmebaby.co.uk. Thank you. So, a bit of like a closing tradition on the podcast, is to ask my guest, whoever is with us this week, if you had to give one piece of advice to a brand new parent, what would that piece of advice be?
look after yourself. I know that sounds hard when you're a new mum, because your priority is obviously the baby, but, and it's a cliche, there is a reason they tell you on an aeroplane to put your own mask on first if they calm down. Because if you are not at your peak, or you're not looking after yourself, then you go down, and there is no one left to look after your friends and family. No one. And I've learned that the hard way. And actually, although I say I struggle with fibromyalgia, I am so grateful for it, because it was my learning point to say, I need to look after me and my needs. And actually, by doing that, I have created some of the most amazing dreams that I never thought possible.
I love
So,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, I love that piece of advice. It definitely is. We forget about ourselves because when we become parents, mum or dad, you tend to just like forget everything, and you're a parent and you've got that child to look after, and you do forget about your own self to look
Completely.
after. So
Set
yeah.
those boundaries. Because the other thing is, by setting those boundaries, you're also setting your child up for a role, like a role model. You're teaching them that boundaries are okay.
Yeah.
Because when they're parents, or even just as adults, if they don't have children, being able to say no is a skill that we really need to say develop. And you're that role model. If you let your boundaries go easily, then that's what they're going to see, and that's
Yeah.
what they're going to model when they're an adult. So yeah, remember that. Remember
Absolutely.
who's watching.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? We've got lots of watching eyes on us, and we need to make them into the best that they can be.
Yeah,
Thank you
definitely.
so much for joining. It's been amazing to chat. I feel like I could chat to you for like ever.
We really could. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I feel like we need to do another episode because there's so much more that we can cover and bring into like your human design and how you have like created
Yeah,
all of that. So hit me up if you want to come back on, because I definitely love
Yeah,
having you
definitely.
on.
Anytime you want me, I am here, and I'm really sorry that I am gonna go. Well, I'm not sorry. I'm not gonna apologise for
No, you're not
this time.
sorry. No.
My husband is taking the kids out, and I've got a Reiki session, so this is my time looking after me.
Yeah, go and enjoy. Thank you so much for all the listeners. If you
Thank
want to
you.
get in contact with Lolly and how to learn about how she lives her life by design, like by human design, all of her links are on this podcast episode, and you can get her there. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.